Good morning, RockFish Church. I tell you what, I'm going to try sitting over here sometime because there must be something special about the ground on this side of the room. There's no air. Is that what it is? Well, I'm going to have to work on that. Then I know what to do. I'll adjust the air on this side, and because is that always been the reason? It seems like we always have more people sit over here than we do over here. And I'm sweating either way, so it really doesn't affect me. Anyhow, guys, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We're going to be into part 6. Yeah, it's the first Sunday, but we're part 6 of this 9-part sermon series on Life on the Rock. But before we get into that today, kind of going to talk about something. You saw the promo video for the chaplain or the evangelist program. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we're calling RockFish Release. This is something that is we've started, we've been doing for a minute, but we're rolling this out over the next few months at a much bigger scale. Guys, we have who knows what our mission statement is? We exist to make, equip, and release. And part of this was birthed out of some stuff that happened in our senior staff meeting. We looked at, okay, how effective are we at the making, equipping, and releasing? If we say this is why we're here and this is why we exist, then how good are we at doing what we say we're supposed to be doing? And we were okay. You know, first of all, we have a bunch of people in our senior staff that we're always going to see that we could be better. So it wouldn't matter how good we were at anything. We're probably not ever going to say we're a 10. You know, we could always do better. But when it got to releasing, we were like, ooh, we're not that good at that. And so we're working on and we're developing programs. I say programs. They're tracks, they're courses. They involve classroom and they involve a practicum aspect, and I'll get to that. But guys, we're going to take this idea more seriously than ever, that we're not just making and equipping, we're releasing people. I've heard people say, you know, the church is supposed to be a hospital, not a country club. Well, but that's not. Yes, there is some truth to that, but just saying we're a hospital. How many of you have ever been to a hospital where it was a teaching hospital? It wasn't just a hospital, but they were really there. Their whole purpose was to teach and train doctors and nurses and other members of the medical community. They needed to serve patients to be able to do that, but if you really step back and look at it, it becomes obvious their goal and their purpose wasn't to treat patients. That was a byproduct. That was a side effect of their main purpose, was to teach and train others to do what they were already able to do. And if you've dealt with medical care lately, you know that we always need more doctors, good doctors. We always need more nurses. Well, the church should be that way as well. Yes, we're to take in those that are lost and are hurting, and we're to minister to them, and we're to meet those needs. But that's not all we're supposed to do. See, think about this. Maybe if it were the hospital where you came in sick and you left a doctor. That's kind of how the church is supposed to work. We're not supposed to just come together and with the attitude of I'm gonna get mine today, and then that's it. I was at church on Sunday and I checked a box and now I'm good for the week. This idea of, if we're Christ followers, if we're disciples, then we should be doing what He did. We should be, as we go through our everyday life, as we're out and about, and some of us we all have responsibilities, we all have giftings and callings, and some have a greater level of gifting and calling, and that's okay. So we're looking to train people and equip people in practical aspects of ministry. We've worked really hard with these programs to make sure that we're not going to be another school of theology. The world has enough theologians. We need people that are willing to and understand what it means to get their hands dirty, to get involved, what it really means. How many of you have ever taken a training or a class or a certification or gotten some kind of licensure, and once you got that and you got into the actual job, you realized that the school really had very little to do with what goes on in the real world? You know, I experienced this even on a college campus many years ago. Again, I don't put numbers on those things, but I was young, and Jennifer and I were young, and we were in college, and then we had twins, and I dropped out of college. And when I say I dropped out, I didn't withdraw from my classes. I just dropped out and quit going. Well, if you understand what happens when you decide to go back, you have to go back and retake those classes to get those grades off of your records. So now here I am, some many years later, retaking Accounting 1 after I had been in the real world, as I like to call it, for many years. And I drove that professor crazy. Not out of disrespect. She was a good professor, but she had never worked in the real world of accounting. All she knew was the theory of it. And the theory and the actual practice don't always line up. We don't want to do that. We don't want to equip people with a whole bunch of knowledge and not know how to go out and use it. So it will be practical. Guys, we're not here just to be fed. We're here to equip and put people into action. We're here to provide training and opportunities for different people. And I want to go into that, but let me just give you this, because we believe the giftings are already there in the body. We believe that there are people at each location that meet these giftings. In the state of North Carolina, this is just the state of North Carolina, and I'm just talking about one denomination, Baptist, and I'm talking about them not because I'm picking on them. I came out of the Baptist church, okay, so I don't have anything against them. It's just if they're really good at anything, which they're good at more than just this, but they're really good at accurate reporting and tracking numbers. And so we know that just that denomination, there are 600 churches in the state of North Carolina that do not have a pastor. That's just one. So then you think about how many different denominations are there that don't have pastors. And then you have churches that say they're non-denominational. Guys, there's a huge need in the body. And remember, we're not about building the RockFish Church brand. We're about building His kingdom. So we're going to do things. We're going to launch the evangelist track. Now, this is not an evangelism. This is not another class on evangelism. Yes, we will talk about evangelism because we all should be doing evangelism. If you're a Christ follower, you have a responsibility to share the good news. Okay? But we want to train the evangelist. See, in Ephesians chapter 4, where we get, it says, and He gave some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry. So the calling of the evangelist, yes, it's to share the good news, but it goes beyond that. It's to inspire and equip others in the body to do so as well. Okay? So we've already done the chaplain program. We have to date, let me get the numbers, we've commissioned 16 chaplains. We have 35 in the pipeline that are on their way. They've done the classroom portion. They're now entered the practicum period where they have to get 40 hours of actual service as a chaplain. They're in hospitals, they're in schools, they're doing other activities. Some of them are now to the point where they're working with different funeral homes. Guys, whether we realize it or not, the number of military funerals that happen in this community would blow your mind. Not all of them make the news. And we get calls on a regular basis. We've got a member of the military and they don't have a church. They don't have a pastor. They don't have anybody. And we can put chaplains alongside those families to work with those families. We actually have, I know one person in this room that has completed the classroom training and is starting on the practicum. We have others that come out. They're serving inside the church as well. When you go to, like if you're at the Rayford campus and they say if you need prayer at the end of the service, you can come to the front, that's staffed by our chaplains. They're doing real ministry, and they've been equipped 8 hours in the classroom, and then they do their practicum. All of our tracks or courses will be like that. Now the good news is like I said, we're about equipping the body. So to go through the classroom portion, you don't have to be a member of RockFish Church. Okay, I personally don't know why you wouldn't want to be a member of RockFish Church, because I think we're a pretty cool church. I'm maybe a little bit biased. But to enter the practicum part, the practical on-the-job training, you have to be a member. We're supposed to know those that labor among us, and we also want to know, guys. We make a big deal out of membership because we want to know who we're responsible for. Right? We want to serve the community, and we want to serve everyone we interact with well. But if you're a member of RockFish Church, there's a different level of responsibility that the pastoral staff has for you. So we kind of need to know that. So we've got the chaplain program that is up and running. It has been hugely successful. I know it sounds like 16 doesn't sound like a lot, but with 35 on their way, we've had 60 go through the class. That means out of 60 people, only 9 have not entered the practicum. And almost every one of those was not a member of RockFish Church. Now, they may be doing something with their own church. And see, at the end of this, you get commissioned, and you get some credentials that say you were commissioned as a chaplain or as an evangelist, or as we roll out the next track, which is the teacher exhorter track. Okay? Now, that's not necessarily means that you'll be standing in front of the church body teaching, but we need people with the gift of teaching. We need people that are called to be teachers to be able to teach and teach well. We have ways to give platforms through social media and other things that don't necessarily involve standing in front of a large group of people or a small group of people. We have opportunities. The body needs that. And then we're going to launch a pastor-planter track for people that feel called to pastor churches or to plant a church. The body needs all of them. And going through the track doesn't mean that you have to go plant a RockFish Church. Now we have a whole system that we use to do that, and there will be people that will go through that will possibly wind up on the pastoral staff at RockFish Church. There'll be people that go through that go pastor other churches. There'll be people that go through that go plant RockFish churches in other locations. And there'll be people that go plant an independent church plant, because not everything we do has to be RockFish Church at the very front, because it's not about us. It's about building the kingdom. And when we look at that number, 600 churches that don't have a pastor in that one denomination, that means that we as a body, because it's one church, we have not done a good job raising up people and equipping people to step into those roles when they're needed. And I think it's the giftings that are here, even just among this crowd. We want to help you maximize what God has already put inside you. If you're not an evangelist, if God hasn't called you to be an evangelist, all the training in the world is not going to set you up to correctly walk in that office or that role. Okay? If the thought of standing in front of a group of people and talking just is beyond comprehension for you, because you have that fear, probably being a teacher may not be for you, but at the same time it may be. You don't know. But we want to find out we want to find your gifting We want you to know your gifting and your calling, and then we want to help you maximize that. And inside RockFish Church and outside of RockFish Church. Guys, God has so much more, and it is so fun when you're doing what God's called you to do. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there are challenges. I would love to tell you that I wake up every morning and I just can't wait to get to the office. Well, that might be true if the office didn't open until about 11 a.m. or noon. You know, I'm not a morning person, so I don't wake up early in the morning just excited to be awake, much less to do anything. But it's still, there's so much fun. There's so much that you can do, and to see what God can do when we say, okay, God, I'm going to lean into what you've called me to do and be, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to get the training, I'm going to get the equipping, and so we want to make sure that is available. It becomes our launching point. We want to launch not necessarily into vocational ministry, okay, but possibly into vocational ministry. You never know what God has for you. Sometimes, you know, we want to know the end before we start, and God says, just follow me. Well, where are you going? Just follow me. And once we do, it usually is not going to look like we thought it was, but it's going to be so much better. So we're doing this today because the evangelist program is open. Registration is open for that. You can scan the QR code on the back of one of the chairs to get information on that. You can talk to me. It's been fun working to develop this program and this track. Yes, we are going to spend classroom time on what the gospel is and easy ways to present the gospel and transition conversations to the gospel, but we're going to spend a large portion of time on what does it mean to be an evangelist? What's the difference in being an evangelist versus being a Christ follower who just shares the gospel? Because there is a different level. Okay, so guys, as we roll into, and you will see printed materials much like you do for RockFish Reach. You will see that there'll be a calendar. We already have the dates for the rest of this year and all of 2026 set. So there'll be a printed calendar so you'll know when these trainings come up. There'll be brochures to explain this so that you will even have the ability to share this with, if you know somebody that's not a part of RockFish Church that might like to be a part of this, at least the classroom part. You can get that information to them. So again, remember it's right now they're set up to be 8 hours of classroom time. With some of the programs, there is ongoing training and mentorship. Don't just put you in a class for 8 hours and then say, okay, go figure it out on your own. We'll check. There is accountability in each program. You don't just get to come back and say, okay, I've done my 40 hours, and we go, oh, okay, that's great. There's reporting, and not everything will be based on 40 hours. Some will be more, because let's just be real. The more that's expected, the more that the job requires, so to speak, the longer the training takes, right? So let's really get excited about what God is wanting to do, about the doors that God is going to open for each one of us that possibly may involve RockFish Church, but definitely involves His kingdom, that involves seeing change lives in a transition. So guys, I'm going to jump into the message now. We're going to get into the heart of this message. We're spending 9 weeks in what's called the Sermon on the Mount. That's the longest sermon that is recorded in the scriptures. We're looking at this because these are the words of Jesus. If you have a red letter Bible, you'll notice it's all red. When you have questions, when you might not be sure, you always go to the source. So we're going to not what does somebody else say Jesus said, what does somebody else say about what Jesus said, but what did Jesus say? And we're going to spend some time. Again, we've got the rest of this month on that. Guys, I wish I could say this is all easy and it's all fun, Jesus said some really tough stuff. I was having a conversation with somebody on the front porch today. You know, the Bible says some hard things, and we have a choice. We can accept it or not. Notice I said accept it or not. I didn't say believe it or not, because the truth is not dependent upon your belief to be the truth. You don't have to believe it, but it's still the truth. And more importantly, just believing it doesn't do any good. You know, you can believe in the law of gravity. You can absolutely believe that it is a universal law. But if you jump off the building, you're still going to suffer the consequences. If you act contrary to the law, just because you believe in the law doesn't mean you're going to be immune to the consequences. So believing it is not enough. Acting in accordance with it is what really makes a difference. So we're going to look today at what does Jesus say about prayer and fasting. You know, as I was looking at this, one of the passages, Jesus, it's in Mark 9:29. This is a passage that has a little controversy around it, if you want to call it controversy. Jesus, it says, and he said to them, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer. Some translations say prayer and fasting. That's where the little bit of controversy might come in, but the point is still the same. That's always a fascinating story to me, because if you go back to the story, Jesus just cast a demon out, and Jesus didn't pray in that moment. Yet he said this kind only comes out by prayer. So obviously there's a need for prayer before you're facing whatever situation it is. We look in Acts 14:23, and when they had appointed elders for them in every church with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. They're sending Paul and my mind just lost it. They're sending a couple of guys out now. They're sending them on their journey. In Acts 13, while they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, set apart Barnabas and Saul for the work which I've called them. Again, we see the importance of prayer, the importance of fasting. It's supported throughout the Scripture, but what did Jesus actually say? So in Matthew chapter 6, verse 5, it says, and when you pray, again, Pastor Tony talked a lot about this last week. When you pray indicates that there's an expectation that you pray. Do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. And it goes on to say, then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. I'm going to go back for just a second. It says, go into your room and close the door. Private prayer is the key to an intimate, power-filled relationship with the God of the universe. An intimate and power-filled relationship. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about the comparison to marriage. And Pastor Tony kind of made a reference to that last week in reference to intimacy on a physical level. But as I was thinking this, my mind went to how often we see in our culture today, we see a young couple get married, and they have kids, and they raise their kids, and next thing you know, the kids are going off to college, and the couple's getting a divorce. And what happened? What happened was they didn't prioritize the relationship over the years of raising kids so that they had time alone. And not just for physical intimacy, but for true intimacy that involved so much more. And they got to a point, now the kids are gone, the distractions are gone, all this other stuff we filled our lives with are gone, and we don't know each other anymore. That going in the room, you know, we look at it in the marriage, we want to get away and spend some time together. Just the husband and wife. That's important. You know, it's important for us as husband and wife. Now, for Jennifer and I, we don't have kids in the house. But still, we have work, and we have dogs, and we have distraction, and we have this, and we have that. It's important to take time and get away from all of that, where we can just focus on each other. When look, I don't have to worry about cleaning up the kitchen after dinner because we're on vacation, so we went out to eat. So now we're done eating. Now we can go on, and we can spend time together focused on each other, not on the busyness of what it takes to maintain life. We get this opportunity, so we need to take advantage of it. And it always, it says, when it says they do it to be seen by others, truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Look, I've thought about that. I don't know anybody that's got anything they could offer me that I would want in comparison to what he has for me. Yet I see people all the time. It's all about, I need to be seen. Well, I do need to be seen, but I need to be seen by him. Because when it's all said and done, that's all that matters. And it says, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Guys, long prayers do not automatically equate powerful prayers. They just don't. Sometimes, Jesus, help. All you need to say. So let's keep that in mind. Long prayers don't automatically, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with spending an hour in prayer or something like that. But don't think the timer is what equates it being a powerful encounter with God. So we see three things prayer is not. Prayer is not for perception. Guys, you will not impress God. Sorry, you just won't. You won't catch him off guard either. You're not going to surprise him. And impressing others does no good. I'm reminded of a story from when I was in working on one of my degrees. They were relating a story about this very kind of thing that you'd be surprised what people God would use and where spiritual power comes from, because there was a man that had come into this particular organization that was possessed. The man carried a demon, and they went and got some people that they thought, these guys will know how to deal with this. And these were guys that had very charismatic, outgoing personalities. They could pray. I mean, they could say a prayer that would whip you into a frenzy. You know, that kind of. And they prayed and prayed, and they could make no progress. And finally, this other guy came in, and he was one that was very quiet. You wouldn't have even really thought about him. And then he just walked in and touched the guy, and the demon left. Because the power comes from the private, intimate. He wasn't one of those, look at me, everybody notice me, I want or need to be seen. It was in I do in private, God rewards in public. Prayer is not a magic formula. We're going to look here in a minute at what's commonly referred to as the Lord's Prayer or the model prayer, but it's not a magic formula. There are no magic words. There's nothing you can say that will guarantee a certain outcome. Like if you say these words. Guys, we love formulas. It would be so much easier if it was just laid out. Look, just do this, just follow these exact steps, and guarantee you get this outcome. We would love that. I often think, the most common miracle Jesus did was healing the blind, but he never did it the same way twice. Because if he'd have done it the same way over and over, we'd have said, there's a formula, that's how you do it. So it's about spitting in the mud, or it's about saying these words, and we'd think that's all there is to it. It's not a magic formula. And again, prayer's not going to surprise God. Guys, he already knows. He already knows. And he's big enough to deal with your mess and your issues. Most of you have heard the story before when Jennifer's brother passed away unexpectedly. We'd already been through quite a bit, And I went to work. I was working at a private Christian school, and I went to work that Monday morning. He died on Sunday, so it was the next day. And they wanted to pray for me, and they're praying for me. And, they gathered around, and they put their hands on me, and they're praying for me. And I'm crying, and I'm snotting. I mean, I'm ugly crying, guys. It was horrible. But I was praying too. I was letting God have it. I was throwing a temper tantrum or a pity party. I can look back on it and say that. The beauty of it is, when I got done, God said, "Okay, are you done?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, get back to work." He's big enough to handle even our negative emotions. We act like we have to approach him and we have to be all prim and proper and everything has to be said just right. But he already knows. So I'm not advocating you just go off on God, but he understands, and if you do, he's not going to just, "All right, look, that's it, you blew it. I'm not dealing with you anymore, move on." It was just, "Okay, are you done?" "Yeah, okay, now get back to work." He wasn't surprised. We can be real. I think that's what it says, don't be like the hypocrites. Don't do it for show. Be real. Prayer is private. It's a conversation between you and your Creator. He's not just your Creator. He's the one that's responsible for the very breath you're taking right now. He holds it all together. I don't know if you guys see stuff. I see a lot of strange stuff sometimes. And there's a whole lot of